Amal Unbound by Aisha Said. Chapters 45 through 46. Read for you by Mrs. Shoemaker. Chapter 45. The television buzzed low in the background of Nazareen Baji's bedroom. It had now been 4 days since Jawad Sahib was taken away. At first Nazareen Baji turned on the television news each morning as though she hoped they would report it all as a big misunderstanding. But once the detectives came and carted away all the silver files, the ones with the debts he and his family collected from everyone in our villages, she stopped hoping. It was still strange to see Jawad Sahib's face all over the news. But even stranger was seeing my little village, which didn't even register as a dot on a map, no longer quite so forgotten. This morning the camera panned to show our rivers, fields, orange groves, and green stalks of sugarcane. The newscaster on the television reported on the changing times and the uprooting of the status quo. The newspapers Nazareen Baji left lying on the nightstand all echoed the same. The crumbling of the feudal era. Local landlord overthrown. How one man's ego led to his family's downfall. The media tied the leaked information to a local officer who claimed responsibility at a press conference in front of dozens of microphones. I recognized him immediately as the mustached officer who came into the estate months earlier. He was going to be one of the many star witnesses in Jawad Sahib's trial. I glanced at Nazareen Baji. She stared at the screen. Her eyes were red and her cheeks were blotchy. It was as if the contours of her face had changed overnight. I was glad her son could not hurt anyone ever again. But seeing Nazareen Baji's grief and knowing her pain was partly because of me made me feel an odd sort of guilt. It was the strangest thing to hold such different feelings inside myself at once. And as much as Nazareen Baji's life had changed, mine hadn't. Jawad Sahib's arrest didn't mean I could just leave. My debt didn't vanish when the officers carted the silver filing cabinets away. I lived here, and I still washed dishes and helped with dinner. I still brought in fresh flowers and gave the linens to the cleaning girl. I still massaged Nazareen Baji's head and drew her bath. Everything had changed for so many people, but for me, nothing really had. "I'll get your breakfast, Nazareen Baji." I brought her tissues from the dresser. She took one and wiped her eyes. She didn't respond. I went into the kitchen and filled the percolator with water. "Add some more water for me," Mumtaz asked. She stood to the side, her shoulders hunched. Tokir and Ghulam were there too. Tokir pulled out cups from the servants' cupboard and poured in water. "Are you okay, Mumtaz?" I asked her. "You look pale." "How can I be okay?" She shook her head. "Everything is a mess," Tokir agreed. He took a sip of water. "Been here 40 years. Never thought I'd see the day." "But if he did the things the news says he did," I hesitated, "isn't it a good thing that he's been caught?" "With the two of them behind bars, what happens to us?" Ghulam asked. "I need this job. My son's wife is about to have a baby. My other grandchildren needs to see a specialist in Lahore for his heart. What are we going to do without my income?" I added an extra cup of water to the percolator and glanced out the window. Other servants were standing outside. I imagined their discussions were the same as the ones in the kitchen. The conversations had run in a loop since that day. Would they really convict him? And what did this mean for us? I thought Jawad Sahib's arrest would be good for everyone. But it turned out change, no matter how good and necessary, came with a price. Nabila and Bilal weren't anywhere to be seen. The three of us hadn't talked about what happened since the arrest, afraid to say a word in case someone overheard us. But I walked into the servants' quarters. The tinny sound of the television news echoed in the hallway. Bilal's door was wide open, but Nabila's was closed. I tapped on it before opening it. Both of them were inside. Bilal stood against the back wall, his arms crossed. Nabila was on her bed, staring at yesterday's discarded newspaper. Grim-faced, black and white photos of Khan Sahib and Jawad Sahib's faces were front and center. "I'd ask you to read it to me, but I think I know what it says," she said without looking up. "It's more of the same," I agreed. "They found the body, right where he said it was." "So many reporters outside," Bilal said. "There are even more today than yesterday. They'd climb in through one of the windows here if we didn't have the guards and the brick walls around this place." Nabila looked up at Bilal and then at me. "Do you think he's gone for good?" "I hope so," I said. "It just doesn't feel real." Nabila shook her head. "I still feel like I'll wake up tomorrow and find out it was all a dream." Nabila was right. It did feel surreal. But I glanced at the newspaper in her lap. The black and white photos looking back at me were proof it wasn't a dream. After all the people he had hurt, after the generations this family had haunted, we helped bring Jawad Sahib and his father to justice. I smiled. No one here except the three of us would ever know it was a group of servants who brought this family down. No one would ever know it was a girl who helped save our villages. But I knew. Chapter 46. "Amal, I need to talk to you," Nazarene Baji said to me the next week. She patted the space on her bed, motioning for me to join her. "I'm going to Islamabad for a little while," she said when I sat down. "My eldest is coming to get me tomorrow morning. It's too hard to be here right now. This house is too big for me." My heart sank. Islamabad was hours from here. As her maidservant, I would be expected to go with her, even further from my family and all I knew. "That's good," I managed to say. "It's important to be with your loved ones, especially now." "I'm off to see my sister in a little bit before I go." She smiled at me. It was the first smile since Jawad Sahib had left. "She will be happy to see you," I told her. "I hope so," she said, twisting the edge of her scarf. "It's been a long time. It's never too late to see your family." "You're right. And you should be with your family, too." I looked at her with a start. You may as well hear it from me first. There's no use in keeping everyone on while we wait to see what happens. I'm closing up the house. Mumtaz will come with me to Islamabad, of course, and a few people, like the gardener, will stay on here to take care of the estate, but most everyone else will be let go." You're gonna let me go?" "I thought about keeping you." She smiled at me sadly. "I've enjoyed your company, and have grown fond of you. I see in you so much the girl I was. But you belong with your family. Your debt is forgiven." I wanted to hug Nazarene Baji, but I had never embraced her before. Whatever spell she was under, whatever sacred moment this was, I didn't want to risk breaking it. "Thank you," I whispered. Later that afternoon, I sat with the others as Nazarene Baji shared what was to come. Bilal's face broke open with disbelief and then widened into a smile. Hamid hugged Fatima, but Gholam was somber, and when I looked at Mumtaz, she was crying. "But you're going to stay on." I walked over and clasped her hands. "You're going to her home in Islamabad." "But this was my home." She looked up at me. "Take care of yourself, and check in on an old lady now and then if you can," she said through her tears. "I will." I hugged her. I felt surprised by the sadness overtaking me. I had waited so long for this day, and I was glad to leave, but I would miss Mumtaz and the other servants. Fatima approached me a little while after. She held Hamid's hand. "We're leaving. My parents don't want me. Baba said I can go home with him." "Where are you going?" I asked Hamid. "Back home," he said. "Here, Mawala. Wife and children are waiting. Have been for too long. Have a couple of grandkids Fatima's age." He looked down at Fatima and smiled. "It will be nice for you to have some children to play with." Fatima's eyes watered when I walked over to her. She was my first friend here. The person who gave me a chance before anyone else would. "When you finish writing your story, will you send it to me?" I asked her. "I want to read it." She looked at the ground and didn't respond. "We'll see each other at the market. Hamid's village is just on the other side from where I live. I'll find you. We'll stay in touch," I promised. "But it won't be the same," she whispered. "No," I told her, "it won't be the same. But maybe it will be better." She hugged me. I watched her follow Hamid out the door, out of sight. I picked up my satchel and felt a tap. Nabila. "Here." She pushed a cloth bag toward me. "I packed some snacks for you. Some water, in case you need it for the walk home." "Where are you going?" I asked her. "Back home?" "No, never. I'm going to live with my cousin Latif's wife in my old village near Simranwala. She needs all the help she can get." "You going back to school?" I asked her. "I'm not sure." She shrugged. "The literacy center is free, Nabila. I really liked it, and it's not far from where you'll be. Give it a chance. We might even bump into each other. It's just around the corner from where I live." "Maybe. And you better go back to school. You have to become a teacher. It's not every day you get a second chance like this." "I hope so." I smiled. I could hardly believe there was a time she was anything but a friend to me. I leaned over and embraced her. I pulled my suitcase behind me as dusk settled. A crescent moon was etched into the sky above. Soon stars would glitter overhead. But I didn't need them to guide me. I knew my way home. I thought about what Nabila had said. Maybe I would be a teacher one day. Or maybe I'd write a book, or set up schools like Asif. Or maybe I would do all these things. I knew now that one person could hold many different dreams and see them all come true. And one was coming true right now. I was leaving this estate behind me. The walk took longer than I thought. I kept expecting someone to come after me, to snatch me away and take me back to the estate, but no one came. I kept walking. Each step took me closer to my parents, to Seema and Omar and Hafsa. I didn't look back. I followed the winding path, walking over potholes, some so deep they seemed to crack open into the center of the earth. I wondered what would happen next. Would Jawad Sahib be released one day? Would he come searching for me? I thought not knowing would scare me, but I didn't feel afraid. Today, I was free, and even if I didn't know what the future held, I knew I was going home. And right now, in this moment, that was enough.